Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right, happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for October the 23rd in the year of our Lord 2025. This is hour one of two. The goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, and to do so on your radio and the traditions of our founding fathers. As you know, we reject revolution. We stand for peaceful restoration of the greatest country on the face of the earth. That's why we follow the Prince of Peace. Thanks for being alongside for the ride. Sorry I haven't been on the radio or TV for several days. I've been out of town traveling, not good enough internet to do the shows properly, so we've just simply said, hey, let's take a little bit of a hiatus, but now we're back, ready to rock and roll. Radio only today, back on TV tomorrow. A lot of traveling, different people out and different reasons, and anyway, I'm working on my lighting, and we've just got a lot to do, but there's so much good going on, it's not even funny. Without further ado, I want to just mention that we went to Branson, Missouri. And, man, that place is just a blessing and a half. Over the next several days, I'll be chronicling some of our travels, some of our experiences, what was hot, what was not, and why, and a whole lot more. Just a lot of fun. I'll tell you that now. But without further ado, you know, Brian Rust, who usually is on with us every Thursday with the Honest Money Report, is basically on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Doing a great job for that. And as a result, we've got Heath Perkins going to be with us going forward. And Heath has been on with us before, filling in for Brian, but now he's going to be the full-timer. Heath, welcome back to Liberty Roundtable Live, sir.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
Money has gone through the roof. There's a couple of tidbits I want to highlight. First off, gold and silver, pretty much all-time or thereabouts highs. Debt, $38 trillion and growing. It's interesting to me, they kind of made it sound like, with Doge and everything else, that'd be decreasing expenditures. But the fact is, the expenditures are just going up. We'll get to that as the broadcast unfolds as well. Heath, let's start out and say, hey, where's gold sitting?
Gold's sitting at $4,147, and silver is about $49.44.
All right, $41.47, right, and no cents for gold,
and 70 cents. Yep.
Okay, so 41, 47, 70.
Correct.
Wow. It's not at its high because it was up to like 4,400, right?
Correct. Yep. So it's not as high. We had a little bit of a pullback this week with how hot the market's heated up and silver pushing over the all-time high for a consecutive almost 2 weeks. There was a for sure pullback that was going to happen from that to help the markets cool off before it could continue up. It seems like this week is that cool off. So if you're looking at picking me up, it might be a good time because it's looking to move right back up to where it was and then on from there.
So the point is, when there's a dip, go ahead and grab while you can because it's only going up. Now, where was silver again?
Silver's at $49.44.
$49.44. And where is the high for silver?
Silver's high was at 53. Prior to this, it was the early 80s that we broke that recently. And so silver has been going kind of crazy in the markets from a lot of people who've been waiting for decades to sell at 50. A lot of people who missed out on selling it. They wanted to wait to hit 50 back in 2011 when it ran up to about 48, 47, 48, and then dropped right back down. So a lot of people felt like they missed out the opportunity. So a lot have been selling recently, which has been flooding the wholesalers. So the market's kind of getting a little bit crazy out there.
That's the reason for the dip then, is once it hits those kind of 50 mark and stuff like that, people are like, hey, man, now it's time for me to do what I've been wanting to do for a long time. So everybody kind of dumps a little bit and it takes a hit. But thinking about everybody kind of selling and trying to take advantage of that, yes, it's a dip, but when you think about it, still holding at 49.44, that's still incredible, even with that. What does paper do? Because, a lot of people holding paper, if they ask for possession, they're not going to get it, right?
Yeah. So paper contracts don't. They have clauses always in there to where they don't have to fulfill the physical. They can just send you a check anyway. I had a client who was even she had a place that she was paying holding fees, storage fees for her precious metals, and that clause they applied, and she didn't even get the precious metals. She just got a check in the mail, and she's like, "What was I paying you for that whole time if you weren't storing anything?" So it's been interesting to see like the struggle that paper individuals have trying to get physical, and most of the time they don't.
Do you think lawsuits are going to unfold about this? I mean, if you literally tell me that you're storing precious metal for me, and then you pull the clause that says, no, I'm not going to send it to you, I'm just going to give you fiat currency or fake money back in a check, at some point, I mean, there might be a lawsuit there because it's, at least in the car business, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a lemon law. If you know full well the truth about something and you're not conveying that truth. Anyway, is it similar? Do you think they'll get away with this, or do you think they'll just be like, oh, no, that's the contract and they honored it? To me, that's an up for grabs discussion.
I think they'll get away with it a little bit because the bigger banks are getting away with it. It's just one of those things. If you make precedents with a smaller institution, then it'll apply to the larger institutions, and they don't want that. So I think for the time being, they'll slide under on this one. But it's it's one of the things we say. If you don't hold it, you don't really own it. That's the struggle with precious metals. The reality of precious metals is the physical in hand, not the paper, the storage can be fine if you know the facility and you're fine with that, but storage it tends to be where a lot of the the greed kind of sets in, and you have a lot of businesses that were set up as storage places, and all of a sudden someone runs off with all the gold and everyone's stuck with nothing. So it tends to lead to greed when you have a lot of storage on these smaller institutions that aren't on the up and up in a sense.
It's all about honesty. Honesty is the issue, ladies and gentlemen. And it really comes down to that's why I really recommend Free Water Coin Co. That's why I recommend Heath and team, because you know what? They're honest, and they'll tell you flat out, take possession of your metal. If you don't, you know what? You're putting yourself in really a bad position should, dollars be premium. Meaning that, hey, you got to pay a lot of dollars to get a little bit of gold or whatever you want to say. I mean, think about it. $4,900 plus dollars. Or I'm sorry, $4,100. Over $4,000. And it used to be that $20 bought an ounce of gold. Now it's $4,100. Think about that. And then they tell you the Federal Reserve's job is to prevent inflation. Isn't that the most ultimate inflationary dishonesty, Heath?
Oh, yeah. The Fed always has a goal of 2% a year, but people don't realize that 2% a year over a century will pretty much rob a nation of almost all its wealth. So as small as
2% a year, what's that then? Over 100 years, 200%?
Oh, I can't. I don't know the exacts on that. It's just like people think that small amounts of inflation are okay, but it just takes time before that inflation. I mean, this is where you see a hyper growth when it comes into the charts. Like 2% can quickly add up towards the end of that, and that's where most of the assets are being owned by the Federal Reserve and others. Like 2% is a lot when you start looking at the amount of time it takes to really gather in a lot of funds underneath that. So
because the reality is it's 2% compounding. It's not just 2%,
yes.
Right? In other words, 2% on a dollar, folks, is 2 cents. If it was just 2 cents over and over and over, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But the problem is it's $1.02, then 2% of that, and then $1 and whatever that number is, and then and so it exponentially increases, and that's why now it takes over $4,000 to buy an ounce of gold when it used to take $20. A dollar used to be 1 ounce of silver. Now it's literally $49. That's 49 times really 49 times your dollar has decreased in value, right?
Oh, yeah. And on the gold side, it's 207 times. From that $20 gold piece now to the, over $4,000 price, you're at, 200 times what it used to be. So it's
all right, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a quick break. I'm Sam Bushman. I've got Heath Perkins with me, ladies and gentlemen. He's with the Free Water Coin Company, freewatercoinco.com. He's part of the team. For 3 generations, the Rust family has been taking care of people and helping them understand precious metals and helping them provide real value. Hang tight. More in seconds. Liberty Roundtable live.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, "By having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids."
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcasts at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
Back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Heath Perkins with me, freewatercoinco.com. So, Heath, a lot of things happen in the market when gold and silver do so well like this. They have a resurgence. Really, the dollar's tanking around the world is the problem. Now you've got $38 trillion debt going on. The banks have been really gravitating towards gold and silver quite a bit. Now people are starting to want to sell in it. What's going to happen to the market? Are we going to see it harder to get silver, Eagle silver dollars and rounds? Is it going to be easier but expensive? What do you think the ramifications in the market looks like?
So right now, there's a little bit of a sign that we're seeing that's kind of a concerning sign. So you have refiners out there. So a lot of this 90% U.S. silver that's being sold to the wholesalers, they're offloading it to refiners. Refiners have stopped taking that as a product that they would purchase due to they only want pure, and they need to melt down as fast as they can this pure and send them out in 1,000-ounce bars. So large institutions are picking up silver faster than they've ever picked up before, to where these refineries are behind on getting those orders out. So they have a 3-month, they're 3 months backlogged on refining any 90%, so they put a hold completely on it. There's only, I have a few different wholesalers I work with. One of those is still buying 90%. The other ones are not. So there's a little bit of a weird play where pure and getting pure out the door as fast as possible to these larger commercial or institutions seems to be drying out a bit of the silver that's out there. Since Trump got elected, the purchasing habits of clients in the store has been to sell. So the last almost full year has been selling. And so I've been shipping off on a weekly basis, or maybe sometimes twice a week, the product that I can't move in the store and I just need the liquidity over. And so we've had an abrupt change in that in the last 2 weeks, where I'm starting to see people, it took, silver hitting $50 an ounce for people to change their mentality that, okay, maybe 50 isn't the ceiling and maybe 50 is just the new support. And that's what has really shook the market. And seeing all of these larger refineries saying, hey, we're done holding or purchasing 90% from anyone. We're putting a hold on that. We're 3 months backlogged. We're not going to do that for a time. We need to get our other orders out the door. Has really.
Does that mean eventually we'll have a greater liquidity crisis of metals? In other words, hey, if they hold off in purchasing this and they start blowing stuff out the door, that's great at first, but that'll backfire too, right?
Yeah. It'll normalize itself out because it's just, people are seeing this run up to 80 or to 50. And again, back in 2011, when it ran up, it was trying to run to 50. It went to like 47, 48, and then it dropped down back to 35. So people were worried about a repeat of that. And so they wanted to get out before that could happen, but it just kept going. It broke the 50 range that was the ceiling back in the early 80s. And because of all of this, yes, we're starting to see silver kind of dry out a little bit, because a lot of people are now taking that perspective of, hey, this isn't the bottom, or this isn't the top anymore. There's still more room. And if you look at gold's all-time high was about 2,000 at the beginning of last year, and now we're over 4. So it took a little over, 18 to 20 months or so for gold to double. I don't see silver taking as long for that to happen. If we're looking at just gold as an example, the run up to 50 was pretty strong, and it held for 2 straight weeks over 50, showing that, this isn't, 50 is no longer the ceiling. So it's got a lot of room to continue on, and it's still the more undervalued of the two assets. Silver is over gold.
So where do you think the top of the market looks like then? At some point you just kind of go, if you really think of silver, if it's going to match the kind of 200 plus times gold's looking at and stuff like that, I know silver's kind of been suppressed because there's a lot of it on the market. It's used for a lot of products and different things, and so it's been artificially suppressed forever. Is it gonna normalize? Are we gonna see $300, $200, silver stuff?
You very easily could, and the reason is it's in relation to what it's being measured by. So if we're measuring it by the dollar, how far can the dollar drop is the real question. Because if the dollar can continue to drop, then silver and gold, real assets, can continue to move up. It's very similar to how I'm not sure outside of Utah, a lot of the housing market, but in Utah, a lot of locals who weren't in houses before 2020 have been getting priced out of homes. And in the more recent years, everyone's getting priced out of a brand new truck at $90,000, $100,000. And it seems like the next commodities out there for people to get priced out of are going to be gold first and then silver down the road. These are just real assets measured against a fiat currency. And that in that comparison, again, is how far can the dollar truly drop? That's how far that silver and gold can move up.
So the question becomes, how far do you think the dollar can drop? Because on one hand, it'll drop. On the other hand, they might use this as a jubilee, merge us to a digital currency. Forgiveness of debt will be the transition play. Hey, you know what? Heath, we can take care of all your debt if you just go. Is that what it looks like?
It does look like that is starting to be the outcome. It's interesting because you've got an East versus West mentality right now. The East is trying to go digital, but they want to back it with gold. The West is trying to go digital, but they want to back it with U.S. Treasuries and bonds, so U.S. debt with these stable coins. And so you've got two sides to this, and it's kind of like a race to who can do the best. This whole move by Trump and the stable coin has kind of shook the East with their play on just picking up a lot of the real assets. I mean, China is the largest gold producer in the world and also the largest gold consumer in the world. And so their play is to back with precious metals. The U.S.'s play is to find a new buyer for the debt. These U.S. bonds and treasuries, like we've had a lot of these central banks no longer want to hold those, or other nations. And so it's just who's going to buy the debt. And they're looking at stablecoin as being the solution for that. So they're trying to prop things up and go into that digital realm and get away from these currencies. So how far can the dollar drop? Well, it can drop as far as it needs to in order for enough pain to be on the citizens to demand something different. And when we demand something different, they're going to offer a digital system. That's where the future is looking when it comes to dollars. No one wants to hold dollars anymore due to when Biden was in office, he clawed back a third of Russia's dollars from their reserves, which is, if anyone had a third of your funds taken away to support you and your family or you and your, community, that's, kind of an act of war. But the rest of the world saw it and said, hey, the dollar is a weapon. I don't want to hold dollars. So everyone is looking at the dollar as something that can be, if I don't agree with America, they can take those from me. Why would I have those? So the dollar is consistently losing its position in the world as something that people wanted to hold, and it's turning into kind of more of a hot potato, and everyone wants to get rid of it. The danger of that hot potato scenario, though, is that's how, Germany and the Weimar Republic went into hyperinflation. When everyone is trying to get out of the dollar as fast as it, and no one wants to hold it in their bank, and they're just trying to buy up assets as fast as they can, and the velocity of money is just spiraling very quickly, that's when you start to see a bit more of a hyperinflation, because the businesses, they want to sell their products, but they're going to start increasing their prices because they don't want to hold that dollar, because they're going to lose value by the time they get that dollar back into real product to replace the stuff that's been sold. So there's a little worry on the horizon here where it's coming to, if the dollar becomes the true hot potato, we're in for a little bit of pain. Well, quite a bit of pain.
So let me ask you this, because in the past they've had so many different, I'm going to call them shenanigans is the best way to describe it. Quantitative easing, I can go on and on. I don't want to make it too complicated for the listeners necessarily. Derivatives, I mean, all kinds of, have they run out of options, Heath?
No. The thing is, the central bankers are the greatest magicians in the world, and they always have something.
No doubt.
They have a 300-year plan, kind of a system. Like, they don't play the short game. They've never played the short game, and that's why they slowly just let the pot boil, and we're just all stuck with it. But yeah, there's no short game. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was asking, what more can the Federal Reserve do? And I'm like, well, what if the Federal Reserve offered negative interest rates, kind of like Switzerland and Japan for a time? And he never had considered in his life negative interest rates.
So they're going to pay me to borrow money. It's that crazy.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are things that have been put into play that are just like no one ever imagined that could have been an option. But
debt forgiveness will be at the top of the play. Biden flirted with that for student loans and everything else, setting the stage. The stimulus checks have kind of got people used to payments. They'll kind of back that into a universal basic income. You're going to see all kinds of stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Heath Perkins with me. He'll be with me every week now, taking the place of Brian Rust, but he's still with Rush, Quinn, and Gift is what we know it as. 3 generations of the Rust family doing a great job helping people understand precious metals. But now Heath Perkins is with freewatercoincode.com. You've got a friend in the honest money business. Heath, we'll talk next week. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Tim.
You bet. You're doing a great job. Heath Perkins, everybody. I'm telling you, great honest money report right here on Liberty Roundtable Live.
Proclaiming liberty across the land. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Tragedy befalls the family of Illinois Republican gubernatorial candidate Darren Bailey. A helicopter crash in Montana has claimed the life of his son Zachary, a daughter-in-law, and 2 grandchildren. The crash announced by Bailey and his wife in a social media post. Tightening the screws on Vladimir Putin, President Trump announcing a new round of sanctions on Russia.
This is a significant shift in policy by the Trump administration, a move designed to inflict enough damage on the Russian economy to encourage President Putin to end the war in Ukraine. Announcing the new sanctions, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said they were needed to address Russia's lack of serious commitment to a peace process. He called for an immediate ceasefire and urged America's allies to support the U.S. and adhere to the sanctions. The 2 oil companies are responsible for more than half of all Russian production.
The BBC's Peter Bowes. European Union has agreed on a new round of sanctions against Russia. The EU sanctions target its shadow fleet of oil tankers and ban imports of its liquefied natural gas. Coast Guard says it's providing an operating base for Customs and Border Protection agents in the San Francisco area.
The San Francisco Chronicle reports 100 federal agents are expected to arrive at the base in Alameda starting Thursday. It's part of Trump administration efforts to track down immigrants in the country illegally.
Correspondent Ben Thomas says San Francisco's mayor and California's governor have condemned the move to enforce federal immigration law. As Vice President Vance's visit to Israel wraps up, Secretary of State Rubio is on his way to Israel. Watching Wall Street this hour, stocks are higher. The Dow is up about 37 points. The Nasdaq ahead 108, and the S&P is up 22 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-583-0141. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call
800-583-0141. That's 800-583-0141.
Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement, how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at CSPOA.org. That's CSPOA.org.
The Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit legal foundation committed to protecting our unalienable right to publicly acknowledge God. The Foundation for Moral Law exists to restore the knowledge of God in law and government and to acknowledge and defend the truth that man is endowed with rights not by our fellow man, but by God. The Foundation maintains a twofold focus. First, litigation within state and federal courts. Second, education. Conducting seminars to teach the necessity and importance of acknowledging God in law and government. How can you help? Please make a tax-deductible contribution, allowing Foundation attorneys to continue the fight. You may also purchase various Foundation products as well at morallaw.org. Located in Montgomery, Alabama, the Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 founded by Judge Roy Moore. Please partner with us to achieve this important mission. morallaw.org.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman on your radio. Mr. Pete Sepp, president of National Taxpayers Union, with me now. Welcome back to the broadcast, sir.
Great to be here.
I don't even know how to start this discussion, Pete, because the national debt just blew past $38 trillion. I don't mean to be too ignorant here, but I can't even understand what $1 trillion is, sir. Much less 38 trillion. I know people say you add zeros. I know people say, oh, look at this picture. It'll show you a warehouse of money stacked so high and so far back in a warehouse you can't see straight. I mean, I get the visuals, but I don't get the reality. I don't understand it. It's the numbers are so catastrophic. There's no choice but a meltdown, Pete.
Well, it is getting to be that desperate. When you think about it, Sam, the very first time our national debt passed $1 trillion was back in 1981. Now, when you do the math, you figure that the average amount of debt over the past 44, 45 years is just under $1 trillion. But that really belies the real problem here, because the national debt has been accumulating far, far faster in recent years than they were, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago. It has gotten far worse. This is, in fact, the first year in which we're going to have a non-COVID related deficit of more than $1 trillion, just the annual shortfall. When you see countries like the United Kingdom and France struggling with debt and deficit levels as a percent of their own economies that are even lower than ours, they are finding themselves in crises over debt and deficit levels that are lower than ours. I am repeating that so people understand. We are really living on borrowed time. I don't want to get into the doom and gloom here, but seriously, we have got to think about this as an emergency.
I agree 1,000%, except for, here's the question. When you have Doge that was supposedly decreasing all kinds of things, then when you have the government shutdown, which is supposed to, spend less money, you look at this and you go, how can this be? Can't we bring ourselves back from the brink with some of these measures taking place already?
Well, we certainly can start to do so. We've had 2 rescission packages. The president proposed to claw back spending that had already been appropriated. Okay, that's great. That amounts to about $15 billion between the 2 of them. Unfortunately, when we're talking about a deficit of $1 trillion, a national debt of $39 trillion, we have a much further way to go than that. It's kind of a symbolic thing, a sign of progress, but a whole lot more to do here. So, yes, we're going to have to engage in some serious measures to first slow down and then actually reverse the course of federal spending. It's not impossible. Prior to the pandemic, in 2019, federal spending was more than 30% lower than it is today. Does anybody believe the federal government was tiny or too small or spending too little money in 2019? I don't think so. Why don't we start there? Roll it back to that level.
Let me ask you this, and I hate to make this partisan. I don't like to, but I don't know that I have a choice. So the Republicans claim they want to save money. The Democrats, claim they, just need to take care of people. They don't want to claim they want to spend money. They just say, we want to take care of everybody. At the end of the day, though, both of them have to own this. You can't say the Democrats did this and put a sign on a gas pump that points at somebody or somebody else. Or the blame game has got to stop. And if you're ever going to solve this, it's going to start with people saying, look, we both have been part of the problem and we both need to be part of the solution. Am I onto something or am I just crazy?
No, you're definitely onto something. Let's think about this. Under Republican presidents and Congresses, we've gotten things like the Medicare prescription drug benefit, Part D. Well, that program has cost less than was originally estimated, but it's still a new entitlement program created under a Republican administration. The Department of Homeland Security also created under a Republican administration. Education spending, which the current president admirably is trying to pare back and reduce the federal role in education. Well, but that ramped up incredibly under George W. Bush, a Republican president, and Republican Congresses have consistently boosted national security spending without necessarily actually increasing our national security. These are all important points to remember, that yes, there is a share of blame here to go around for all parties, and especially when it comes to failing to confront the biggest drivers of federal spending and debt. That's Social Security, Medicare, and to a lesser degree, Medicaid.
All right, now let me stop you. If you take Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, they're kind of the third rail. You can't touch them, they claim. Even Trump saying, hey, we're not going to melt this down or whatever. Don't worry. The Democrats are saying, oh, yeah, they're going to ruin it all. What percentage of this deficit, or let's just say this, what percentage of this expenditure? So what do we got, a $4 trillion budget this year?
Oh, more than that. About
$6 trillion?
Almost 7.
Okay, so a $7 trillion budget this year. You got basically Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and interest. Those 4 top items. What percent of that $7 trillion is that?
Oh, almost 3/4 when you include interest.
Okay, so no offense, but if we don't talk about those 4 items, we're not even talking about anything that matters. I mean, I know symbolically it's good. I'm not trying to down any efforts made. Okay, any efforts made are better than nothing. I get it. But at some point it becomes all talk and all rhetoric, and we're not really taking the bull by the horns, Pete.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And when we think about almost 3/4, so, 70% in that neighborhood on those 4 things, if we're not focusing on them, we're not focusing on the source of the problem. If you throw in the fact that national security outlays are increasing, well, that's more like 80% of the problem. And we cannot get a handle on the growth of federal spending without maintaining our eye on the entitlement programs. And people don't like when you use the word entitlement for Social Security and Medicare, but that's how they're defined. If you meet certain qualifications for the program, you are entitled to benefits under it. It's not appropriated annually by Congress. It just happens. It's on automatic pilot. And that's part of the problem already. Congress and the president put these programs on what is called mandatory status, meaning the money gets thrown out of the federal treasury depending on how many people qualify for these programs. There is no forethought a year in advance as to what's going to be appropriated for them.
So let me give you this headline, see if it makes sense. 75% of federal spending is tied up in entitlements and interest. The madness must stop.
I agree. Absolutely.
All right. So is anybody, Pete, really putting this on the table like Sam Bushman is to truly have a chance to make it stop?
I think that Rand Paul has come closest to that. And of course, he's often a pariah in his own political party for speaking up and saying, okay, we may not be able to confront every driver of the federal deficit and debt right now, so why don't we just focus on something easier? How about we cut a penny from every federal program, overall federal spending? How about we try for a nickel of overall federal spending? Let's do this in digestible bites. And he often gets ridiculed for that, even by members of his own party. They scoff and say, we can't do that. It would bring catastrophe to the entire structure of the federal government. Well, catastrophe is already going to happen. I would argue it is happening, not only to the federal government, but the economy and to taxpayers. So that excuse is long gone.
So let me throw out this headline. America's budget hijacked. 75% of spending locked in entitlements and debt payments. Is that right?
Yeah, that would be true, especially if you include other types of entitlements outside of the big three. There's a lot of agriculture spending that is entitlements. Certain education programs are technically entitlements. Mandatory spending and interest is chewing up the federal budget. It is about 3/4.
All right, when we come back, my next headline is going to say we've got to act. Time to act. Entitlements and debt interest eats 75% of every tax dollar. It's time to act, people. It's not time to talk about this. It's not time to play games. When we get back, I want to talk to Pete Sepp about Doge, about Trump's efforts, about Rand Paul's efforts. Is anybody listening, people?
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
I really don't want to talk about this, but I will. I'm just so mad. I didn't get asked to the junior prom and it's raining, which means by the time I get to school, I'm soaking wet. Dad picked me up just after I left and I was so mad I got out and he said, wait, your mom said to give you this. I forgot my lunch money and then I dropped it in the water and I was late for history, and so at lunchtime I had to find something on John Stuart Mill, which of course our library didn't have. So I had to walk all the way down to the office to call my mom, and she found something on the internet and called me back. And Karen, she wouldn't even help me, and that's a whole nother story. But Dad helped me conjugate nouns or whatever on the way to the swim team workout, and then he read my history paper while I was in the pool, and of course I forgot the bibliography, so I had to do that with my mother when I got home, and it made me totally forget that I put my jeans in the washer that morning, and I hate it when they sit wet like that all day and smell like mildew, but my mom said she put them in the dryer while I was at the swim team, and I'm just not gonna go to the prom, no matter who asks me. I just want to stay home with my mom and dad.
Family.
And just hang out.
Isn't it about time?
Unless Dustin asks me.
From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, Pete Sepp with me, National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org. He's the president. He's making a tremendous difference. We'll talk about some things they're doing in just a second. But Rand Paul's efforts are legendary. I'm speaking out boldly, nobly. President Trump is speaking out quite a bit. As you know, Elon Musk and Doge spoke out. But are they really making a difference? How big of a difference has Doge made, and will it make? Or is it still making a difference? And then what about President Trump and his efforts? And are we just having deaf ears here? Or are people really paying attention and starting to sit up and go, okay, what should we do? Pete?
I think there are encouraging signs. Take a look at the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the fact that that bill made major changes that will affect the future growth of Medicaid outlays. You've got a lot of reforms in there that are going to tighten eligibility requirements, that are going to go after some of the waste, fraud, and abuse, that will restructure the Medicaid program so that it is truly being targeted to those who cannot work, who are not able-bodied, who are too poor to afford health care. That's a step in the right direction. But again, as I prefaced, this is slowing the growth of Medicaid, not actually reversing the growth of Medicaid. Okay, let's take that win, but let's start replicating it throughout the mandatory programs. And again, that 3/4 figure is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, net interest, and other types of mandatory programs. Roughly about 1/4 of the federal budget is not on autopilot right now.
3/4 of the budget on autopilot.
Roughly that much, yes.
Okay, and now they say to me, Sam, we got a government shutdown. The shutdown is really over that quarter or less then. And what that means in my mind is, does it cost more money or less money when the government's shut down? You would think they're not spending money, so it would cost less. Is that true?
Overall, is an immediate fact, no, it actually does cost more when the government is shut down because productivity lapses are what counts for it in some federal departments.
Yeah, in other words, the debate is we don't get enough out of government, but at least, there are some things that are valuable that we're not getting, so we're losing, and eventually we back pay it all, right?
That's right. That's right. Now, the political part of this, of course, is that if we settle the government shutdown with more spending, well, that's a worse situation than having the government currently shut down. I've been talking about this in a lot of places about how financial markets are reacting to the government shutdown. And I'm saying, well, the impact of a government shutdown on the overall economy is not huge. Even if you take Secretary Bessent's word that it's $15 billion a week, well, we have $600 billion a week of economic productivity, gross domestic product. So 15 billion is just a blip, but I think markets are fearful of how this shutdown will be settled. If we decide, okay, we're reopening the federal government, but we're going to go on and figure out how to keep federal outlays low or at least restrain their growth, markets are going to love that. They want to see that. But if the way to reopen the government is we cave to the demands of Democrats, we're going to roll back all the Medicaid reforms, we're going to continue all the Obamacare subsidies, even the COVID-era ones, and we're going to add another trillion to the national debt because of that, well, I think markets are going to react pretty badly. So it's the settlement of the shutdown, not the shutdown itself, that matters here.
Where do you think we're going with this? Last I've heard, the Democrats are rioting, but yet some Democrats are kind of coming to their senses and going, okay, we got to talk. Trump saying, I'm not going to talk unless you guys quit playing games about, funding illegals and ramping up healthcare expenditures. We're not going to do that. If you want to talk real, we'll come to the table. Otherwise, we won't. Where do we really sit, and what do you think, how long is this going to last? Any idea?
I happen to think that now that the No Kings protests have occurred, that Democrats have been able to go out and play to their radical base and say, look, I'm with you all on these things. Maybe after another week or so of cooling off, Democrats will realize they have more to lose now by not coming to the table. And I'm sure hoping Republicans hold fast. I have to give credit to Speaker Johnson here for saying, no way. Democrats own this. They are going to have to come back and say, let's open the government and then we'll talk. No preconditions like more burdens on American taxpayers. Any encouragement we can give Republican leadership in the House and the Senate to hold fast to that principle, we've got to do it.
I agree with you, Pete, and I agree with Mike Johnson on that point, but I guess I'm frustrated with Mike Johnson, though, because right now he's kind of telling everybody to go home, and he's playing this to the political hilt as well, even though he's right. He's bludgeoning Democrats over this. Why doesn't he come back, though, and say, listen, let's fund the air traffic controllers, let's do a single-issue bill, let's get 20 single-issue bills funding the proper role of government on the table, and let's show that we really do mean business for the American people, not just shenanigans, not just game playing, not just holding it over their, quote, political heads, but we really do want to have a solution to the log jam, whatever you want to call it. And why don't they pass several different single pieces? I mean, if they don't, you could say, look, these guys are even against the traffic controllers. This bill has nothing to do with the arguments, everything to do with making sure people get paychecks and making sure that our economy runs smoothly and everything. You could set yourself up for the midterms in an incredible position if you would do that. Am I making any sense?
Oh, yes. And in fact, there are rumors that strategy may be next for the Republicans. And if
why haven't we done that for the last several weeks, though? We could have had like, hey, we've got 25 wins here, and if we don't have those wins, we could use that to absolutely say these people are nuts, and it would set the stage for the midterms big time, right?
Yeah. I think it all has to do with timing. Not even the Republicans knew how long this shutdown would last. Initially, they probably thought, well, we'll wait them out for 2 or 3 weeks and they'll come back. Well, we're into 3 weeks now, and it doesn't look like it. So I think the strategy you outlined, Sam, might be their next best move.
I don't really understand it. It seems like this stuff is so easy to me, but obviously it's not, or they would be doing some of this. It's the behind the scenes are much more complicated than we outside of the system realize, aren't they?
Yeah, unfortunately so, and they shouldn't be. And in fact, because of this complexity, we end up running up the national debt past $39 trillion now. We end up with trillion-dollar deficits as far as the eye can see. You know, those are things that we need to structurally solve, and it's going to take a totally different approach to legislating. As much as people like what President Trump might be doing, the executive power was never meant to be in charge of the federal budget. That was an Article 1 congressional power, and they are not assuming their responsibility in Congress to do that.
All right, I don't know where to go with all this. I just know I want to make a difference. And that's where the average American can make a difference, partnering with National Taxpayers Union. NTU.org is where you go to learn more. Pete Sepp, the president. Pete, what's going on, not counting just the general or the federal government, because you know what? There's a lot of good things happening in the states and across the country and on the local levels. That's really where we're making a lot of hay and where hopefully if we have common sense, it can roll downhill to the general government, right?
Yeah, absolutely so. Numerous states, a dozen of them actually, are lowering their income tax rates or even working toward eliminating their income taxes. There is also a prairie fire movement, and not just in the prairie, to reform property taxes from Florida all the way out west. There are excellent property tax reduction and restraint movements going on right now based on Utah's truth in taxation concept. So these are all very encouraging pieces of news. States are managing to keep their expenditures at a reasonable level. The federal government can learn a lot from them as well as those tax reform efforts.
All right. What is NTU doing on this count? I know you guys put all kinds of proposals together, all kinds of research. You bring people together, setting aside partisan politics. You guys do just a tremendous job at that. What's happening up and down the line from the local level all the way up on these scores?
Well, we offer help to local activists who want to form their own taxpayer groups, all the way down to the city level, to the water district level, to the school district level. You really can make a difference as a taxpayer. Hardly anybody shows up to the public hearings on budgets or tax levels or what have you, except the special interests that benefit from them. If you show up, just one person, to those hearings representing the taxpayers' interests, you can be the game changer, and we can help you do that.
That's where the rubber meets the road, ladies and gentlemen. It starts local. We educate, we teach, we set standards, we set policies that make common sense. No one has a problem paying their fair share. Well, I shouldn't say no one. Nowadays, there's people that oppose everything. Most of us are fine with our fair share. What we want is a fair shake. And that's what really we're talking about when it comes to the National Taxpayers Union. We're okay paying taxes. We're okay paying for the proper role of limited constitutional government. Let's just make sure that that's exactly what it is, right?
Absolutely.
All right, Pete, we appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you're a busy man, but thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule for us. We'll pray for them, and we'll work hard to make a difference on our count, and we're grateful to partner with NTU, National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org, up and down the line. Thank you, sir.
Godspeed. Take care.
Pete Sepp, everybody, doing a phenomenal job. What I love about them is they're not into partisan politics. The other thing I love about them is they're not crazy either way, right? They're common sense. They find ways to build bridges and strengthen people and bring people together with actually common sense solutions based on solid research, incredible education. And they also partner with funding and guidelines and training and education, and just NTU.org. They've been a friend for years for great reasons. Check it out, NTU.org. I'm Sam Bushman. God save the Republic of the United States of America.